Today's podcast is brought to you by a company who we have been using for years and takes up significant shelf space inside of our own kitchen. Biosteel Sports Nutrition.
It was a product created out of necessity 8 years ago and is trusted by athletes like Connor McDavid, Tyler Seguin, Brooke Henderson, Rosie MacLennan, and Andrew Wiggins.
They're really a leader in sports drinks for everyone from professional athletes to everyday champions.
Understand something, guys. Nothing worth ever having in this world comes easy.
Do what these champions doing if you're going to be a champion.
You control your outcome.
Who am I?
I'm a champion.
What up, champions, and welcome back to a brand new Biosteel breakdown. As always, I'm your host, Adrian, with my co-host,
Sylvie.
I feel like I'm more and more like a radio disc jockey as these go on. Yeah. And welcome back. Brand new episode. If it's your first time, welcome. If you're a long-time listener, welcome back. We do one of these every week. Give you a quick 5 to 10 minute segment breaking down something in the world of health, wellness, nutrition, mindset, whatever we decide, I guess, right? And so today we're going a touch more sciencey, but we had someone ask about this on the weekend, and so I wanted to break it down. What are we talking about?
HRV, or known as heart rate variability. Very
nice. Yeah, we're going to talk about HRV today. So what is HRV? Why? How can you use it? That sort of thing. And so... And I believe, don't quote me on this, but I'm about to put it out as an authority on fitness. I believe it was the 1960s that HRV was started to develop, and it was developed by Russians for their space program initially. So they were looking at how they could use that technology to help their astronauts. And then it got taken into, maybe it was, I don't know, it could have been the 1960s, 1980s. That I'm not sure of, but it was definitely developed by Russia for astronauts. And then that technology was taken and applied to medicine. And then now more recently, especially in the last decade, we've taken that technology and we've put it into high performance athletics. So what is HRV? It is a snapshot into where an athlete or an individual is sitting in terms of a recovery versus fatigue curve. So there's something called a supercompensation curve, and it's just the rate at which you're recovering and or fatigued. And your HRV will give you a quick look at where the person sits on that curve. Are you fatigued? Are you recovered? How far to each end of the spectrum are you? And so this is important because then we can take that information and use it for training, recovery, and programming. And so there's something, we've talked about it before, but it's worthwhile touching on our nervous system. So we have two different types of nervous systems. We have our voluntary nervous system. So that's something like squatting or lunging or jumping, where we ask our muscles to do a task and then they do it. And then we have our autonomic, our involuntary nervous system. And that's your digestion, your heart rate. What else is a good example of that? Your blood pressure, your lungs, breathing, all those things where they work without us asking. They're autonomic. They do it on their own. And then that nervous system is broken down into two different sectors, and that is our sympathetic and our parasympathetic. And so we've focused on those a little bit before, but it's worthwhile repeating. Your sympathetic nervous system is responsible for speeding everything up, elevating your heart rate, elevating your blood pressure, elevating your body temperature. So think about training, and then your parasympathetic is responsible for slowing everything down, and that is your recovery. So afterwards, lying, bringing your heart rate back down, bringing your breathing back down, all of those things. And so our body is constantly in a state going between sympathetic and parasympathetic, and that's something called homeostasis, where we find the balance in between. I go and I run a 400-meter sprint, and then I walk 400 meters and I bring my heart rate back down. And so now I've returned back to starting position. And the idea is that as an athlete, you can get yourself into a high sympathetic state and perform, but then you can bring yourself back down quickly and recover. So our HRV, your heart rate variability, responds to the beats of your heart. So our heart does not beat on a monochromatic or a metronome, on a metronome tone. It's not 1, 2, 3, 4. When we're highly sympathetic, it starts to mirror more of a metronome. But when we are in a parasympathetic state, in a relaxed state, it beats irregularly. So it might be ba 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 ba. And so heart rate variability reads those beats, and then the time in between is helps give it an indication of where you sit on your HRV. And so a lot of technology now looks at it like a score. So it's green, yellow, red, or stop, go. So rather than giving you a specific number and readout, it will give you a range. And so green means you're good to go. You're very recovered. You're low on the fatigue state. You're high on the recovery state. You can push your body hard. Yellow means slow down. You're in between. And then red means stop. You're high on the fatigue state, low on the recovered state. So if you push your body in that position, you're more likely to get sick or you're more likely to get injured. And so in this way, we can take that information from our HRV and we can use it to set up our training. At the beginning of your training cycle, you set it up in a way that is that you think it's going to go, and then each day you can check. If your HRV score is high, go for it. Try and beat yourself up. If it's low, maybe it's time to take a recovery day. And so in that way, we can keep our body in that middle zone as long as possible, in that homeostatic state, and we can push when we need to and rest when we need to. So we avoid injuries that way. Now we don't have overtraining injuries. Now we avoid developing illnesses because our physical nervous system impacts our immune system, impacts our adrenal system, impacts everything else. And so if we always redline the car, to use an overused analogy, we don't give it an opportunity to turn down. And so we'll end up sick, we'll end up injured, we'll end up fatigued, we won't perform at our best. And so that's why it's so important and that's why it's so valuable. So for anyone interested, I would suggest BioForce. We have no affiliation with them. Joel Jameson has an amazing product. He's an unbelievable strength coach, one of the best for HRV training at this point. I think I would suggest heading over to his website. They have a device really, really reasonable. It's either a chest strap that you put on in the morning or a kind of looks like an electrode pad that you would use for your finger to check your heart rate. You lie still, it uploads to your app, and then it tracks all the data over time. Another one's Omega Wave. If you're looking for another option, they have the same thing. What's great about this technology is that it used to be thousands and thousands of dollars, and now it's down to, I don't know, a couple $100s. And so even if you're not a professional athlete, if you want to compete in a marathon, it might be worth investing in. A couple $100 to make sure that you don't get sick and you don't get injured, especially when the sport isn't what you're actually doing for a living. So the last thing you want to do is be sick or injured and not be able to go to work and do what you do every day. Because you didn't take care of your training. And it takes in, the nice thing about HRV is that it takes in all factors, lifestyle factors, training factors, recovery factors, whatever it is. So that's kind of a brief synopsis of it, guys. There's a ton of research, ton of science on it. If you want to go deeper, let us know. We're happy to send you some links of what you can read. Hopefully it clears it up a little bit. So next time you're at a dinner party and someone asks about HRV, you know what it is.
Yeah. And I think one of the big things too is to, if you don't go and purchase one of these right away, you can just check your heart rate in the morning as well.
Absolutely.
Just like start with that.
Start with a journal and a stopwatch, basically, your phone.
Yeah.
Check your heart rate for 60 seconds, write down how you feel. Do that over the course of a couple of weeks, and that'll give you a little baseline beginner for how your body should feel in the morning when you're ready to train, when you're not.
Love it.
Anything else? That's it?
That's it.
Head over to the website, biosteel.com. They sponsor this segment every week. Use the code word
Champ Lifestyle, capital C, capital L.
And you can grab 15% off your very next order. Thank you, guys. See you next week.